Good morning, dear students. How are you people? And how is the learning process coming up? Hmm? Fortunately, we have adopted this mechanism to reach out to you people so that your learning is going on continuously. Yes, the learning process must go on. Slightly different from the classroom study mechanism because we are using this technology mechanism, and I think nowadays the technology is in the reach of each and every person. Yes, so we shall start today's lecture with the preamble of Indian Constitution. Yes, the preamble of Indian Constitution contains the grand and noble vision which the framers of Indian Constitution had in their mind. As soon as we talk about the preamble, the first question which comes to the mind of any person is that whether it is the part of that particular enactment or not. Yes, normally when we talk about any statute, the preamble, though, is very important in the interpretation when the ambiguity arises, if any, for interpreting a particular provision. When two or more ambiguous interpretations are possible, then we do utilize the preamble so as to interpret it in a proper manner so that we can understand the objectives of that particular enactment. So, normally, the preamble is not considered as a part of a statute. Yes, it is so. But when we talk about any constitution, it is not necessary that a constitution must have a preamble. But when a preamble is provided in a constitution, it is a very piece and part of that enactment. So, whenever we interpret any provision of the constitution, we do utilize the preamble's objectives. It is very much essential to interpret the constitution in the noble vision and the light of preamble. Moreover, our constitution framers adopted the preamble in the same manner, and a motion was held for adopting the preamble to our constitution. Though it was the last thing to be done to the constitution, but it is contained in the very beginning of the constitution. So it is really important because it set out the objects and the goals which the constitution framers had in their brains. It was enacted in the last phase of framing the constitution because these constitution framers wanted the preamble to be in conformity with the various provisions of Indian constitution. So it is also that we can understand the preamble, that it is containing the gist of all the provisions of the constitution. The next question which comes to our brain regarding the preamble is that whether the preamble can be amended. Yes, dear friends, it was an important question before the Supreme Court at various times, and the Supreme Court cleared this question in a very good manner. It was contended before the Supreme Court that the preamble is though a part of the Constitution, but it is not containing any provision. It is not having any power. So therefore, it cannot be amended. But when the other side argued that it is containing all the objects and aims of the Constitution, as well as it was adopted in the manner the other provisions were adopted, and also since whenever a preamble is provided in a constitution, it is really important to interpret the constitution and the various provisions of the constitution in the light of preamble. So the question that whether the preamble can be amended or not was finally set to rest in the case of Keshwanand Bharti versus State of Kerala in 1973 by Supreme Court. And now the answer is that the preamble can be amended. And I shall give you an example for this. The 42nd Amendment to the Constitution added three words to our Constitution, one of which was socialist, another was secular, and the last one was integrity. Though these words did not find their presence in the preamble earlier, but these words are very important whenever we interpret or read or study our constitution. These provisions are very much in the roots of Indian constitution. By virtue of amendment, these words were made manifest and were placed in a very important position, that is to say, in the preamble of our constitution. Many people have raised a question that the constitution was not adopted in a proper manner since the Constituent Assembly was not a sovereign body. So let me answer to you people this question as well. We all know that the Constituent Assembly was a transfer of power by the British Empire. Yes, the Constituent Assembly was framed so as to transfer the power into Indian hands. So, when the Constituent Assembly was framed and thereafter, when the preamble was placed finally by passing a motion to that effect, and when our preamble came into picture, we all saw the words that we give to ourselves this constitution. This word makes itself very clear that we have given to ourselves this constitution. Another example that whether the Constituent Assembly was a sovereign body, a proper body or not, is this that our Constituent Assembly framed this constitution, and resultantly we have been following this constitution from the past many years, and the Supreme Court has also interpreted our constitution in a very good manner, and that is why it has become a living document for all of us. And also uh, elections were held year and year after, and it is working very smoothly. So the question whether the Constituent Assembly was framed in a proper manner was or not was set to rest. The preamble of Indian Constitution answers very important questions which can be raised, and which are raised, and which were raised in earlier times as well. Let me ask you one important question. Where does the ultimate sovereignty lies in our country? You people will answer it very easily because you are my students. But the logic behind it is the preamble contains the words that we, the people of India. So when we read it, we can clearly understand that the ultimate sovereignty lies in the Indian people. Various arguments can be raised, and one can say that the sovereignty in India lies in Parliament, just like the British Parliament. But let me bring to your notice this that uh, Indian Parliament is a creature of this constitution, and in Britain it is not so. The British Parliament is above all, and it is having all the power to bring any provision, to change any law, But in India, just after independence, our constitution was framed, and the constitution created various institutions like the Supreme Court, like the Parliament, and the various offices. So, the Parliament can amend various provisions, but the Parliament is not about this constitution because it is a child of this constitution, a creature of this constitution. So, therefore, it has to work within the ambit of this constitution. And the idea of constitutionalism is also the same. It provides for a limited government, and therefore, the parliament has unlimited powers, but there are limits which are set to it by the constitution. Another answer which people normally give is uh, the constitution is the sovereign body and ultimate sovereignty lies in the constitution. The constitution is a living document and it cannot remain in a rigid manner. There may be times when a constitution may be sufficient for the people's aspirations, but there are times when people do demand for newer provisions and newer things as their aspirations do change with the time. So the law is also required to be changed accordingly, and so is the case with the supreme law, that is the constitution. Therefore, the sovereignty, the ultimate sovereignty, is not contained in the constitution. Rather, it is with the people of India. Because the people of India has given to themselves this constitution, and which is very clear by reading the preamble of this constitution. And therefore, the ultimate sovereignty lies with the people of India. Now let's do read the preamble. The preamble reads, "We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic." So the ground reality is this, that we wanted our country to be a democratic country and we fought for the same in the independence struggle. Therefore, the democracy must inform all the institutions of this life, and the democratic ideals must be not only be there in words, but it must also be followed in all the institutions. And thereafter, now let's move on to the word sovereignty. We wanted our nation to be a sovereign nation, and we did not want any kind of interference in our internal affairs as well as external affairs. So, we wanted our India to be a sovereign, internal sovereignty as well as we wanted external sovereignty. In terms of internal matters, India is free, and we can decide our matters in terms of our own institutions, and no one can interfere in the internal matters of our country, as well as the external affairs of this country will be decided by the government of this country, which will be chosen by the people of this country. So, no internal as well as external interference was wanted. Now let's understand the practical aspect of the word socialism. Ours is a mixed economy, and here both the private as well as the government players are there in the market. So, in various sectors, we see the private players having more important role, and in other arenas, we do see government playing more vital role. Earlier, we had the monopoly in various government sectors, and we saw the various sectors having the total control by the state. But slowly and gradually, the private players also came into picture, and the role of private players in an economy cannot be forgotten. So we do tend to strike a balance in terms of both, and therefore ours is a mixed economy in which both the private as well as the government players are really important. In our subsequent lectures, we will understand the various other things about the preamble. So, for now, uh, goodbye, and please do comment, share, subscribe, and like this video, and tell us how can we better ourselves. Thank you.